wanted to act originally, but both parents were in the business and discouraged that. Wanted me to get a degree, so I went to university and read drama, which I thought was a very clever way around that particular worry. At drama, I did a lot of acting, but we had a TV studio to the side of our studio theatre, and we were introduced to all aspects of TV production, and I really quite enjoyed that. And I was quite a practical person, and there weren't many practical people on my course, so I ended up doing more behind-the-scenes stuff. And when I left, I went to theatre as a stage manager, and then got a job from an advert in The Guardian for a relief temporary holiday floor assistant at the BBC on a 6-month contract. And I stayed for 13 years and ended up as a producer, director in entertainment. So I worked as a floor assistant on early shows, comedy and entertainment, and then grew up on Noel's House Party, which is an entertainment show on Saturday nights, doing a variety of different jobs that coming up from floor assistant to AFM, location manager, production manager, assistant producer, and director there. So it's a slow way. I think all the TV comedies I watched as a kid, like, I suppose, Dad's Army, The Good Life, Bread, Keeping Up Appearances, Ab Fab. I worked on a few of those when I first started in TV, and that was a great way to absorb the world and how it works and who does what and how it all hangs together in the studio. So as a floor assistant, it's pretty thankless, because in those days you didn't get you got studio talkback, but you could hear, but you weren't allowed to respond. So you had your little, it was genuinely a crystal radio receiver that you had. It makes me sound really old, doesn't it? It wasn't that long ago. It's a crystal radio receiver that you had, and you didn't have a microphone because no one was remotely interested in what you had to say. They were just interested in telling you what to do. So your job was to bring the artists through costume and makeup and to get them onto the set at the right point. So being in the studio environment 3 or 4 days a week for sort of 14 hours a day for months on end was a great way to learn who does what and how it works. So I think by the time I reached the dizzy heights of a director myself, I had a pretty good idea of not only the people who were around me, and a lot of the people who knew me then had known me as a young boy, knew that I knew the roots and the way things worked, which works both ways. So I can hopefully sympathise with a lot of the difficulties that the jobs that the people have to do, but also know when they're trying to get away with something because it's just being lazy. Someone starting now, I would say, work in it at whatever level, get the work. So if you have to start by making tea for people without being paid briefly, and then hopefully being paid even a tiny amount, it's worth it. Because there's nothing, you can't really learn unless you do, I think, in this job particularly. So I think observing any film or studio TV scenario and just being around, seeing what goes on, who does what, how it all works, what the jargon is, what the discipline is, when you can speak, when you can't speak, watching what all the departments do is the best possible training, really.